But first, let's go over to the CBN News Desk for today's top headlines.
Terry, Independence Day in the U.S. this year means coast-to-coast celebrations, but it also means a wave of heightened security. It's especially tight in Boston, which is hosting its first large event since the Marathon bombing. Heather Sells has the story.
It's the largest security increase nationwide since the Boston bombings. Across the country, law enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security have joined forces to keep Americans safe this holiday week.
Anytime you have a holiday, it's something that you want to look at. The Boston bombing took place on Patriots' Day. The Times Square incident took place on May Day. Benghazi on 9/11. So dates, significant dates are always a concern to us.
In Boston, security for the 4th is tighter than ever. For spectators, that means extra searches, plus increased patrols on the ground and in the air.
You'll see troopers and National Guard out there at security checkpoints. And then the camera security system, obviously, is another layer of that.
In cities like Baltimore, it's all hands on deck. As tens of thousands watch the fireworks, police say they'll have extra officers watching the crowd.
We want to send a strong message that the Inner Harbor is going to be safe.
In Atlanta, there's heightened security for today's annual Peachtree Road Race. In Los Angeles, officials are keeping a close eye on Union Station, hoping to avoid a terrorist attack like London's 2005 train bombings. And in Washington, D.C., the Capitol is also on high alert near public transit and government buildings. For some Americans this 4th, the extra security no doubt eases fears, and for others, it's all about celebrating without fear.
I feel safe just because what is there to think about? Are you going to be afraid living your life? I have more chance getting hit crossing the street here.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Turning overseas now, the head of Egypt's Supreme Court has been sworn in as the temporary president of that troubled nation. Adli Mansour will serve until a new president is elected. No date has been set for that vote. Mansour replaces the Islamist Mohamed Morsi, who was ousted by Egyptian military. Chris Mitchell has the story.
Egypt's top general Abdel Fattah el-Sisi made the announcement.
We will freeze the constitution temporarily. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Constitutional Court will be sworn in front of the General Assembly of the court and call for early presidential elections. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Constitutional Court will rule the country during the transitional period.
The announcement threw the throngs in Tahrir Square into a frenzy.
I couldn't stand it. I was extremely happy, and my whole family. I left my father at home so that I can go to the street and celebrate it.
The anti-Morsi protesters see the army as their protector and as Egypt's guarantor of stability.
The military are the best people to rule this country at this time. They've proven that they are the best. They have no political intentions, and they don't belong to any party. So this is better. We are feeling comfortable.
The army put Morsi under house arrest and has arrested a number of Muslim Brotherhood leaders. It's uncertain how the millions of Egyptians who supported Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood will react. Now they're calling the army's action a military coup and more.
This is an upheaval of legitimacy and the Constitution. This is a military coup and will result in bringing the army back to the political sphere.
El-Sisi made his statement alongside the top Muslim, Christian, and opposition leaders who hope it's a new beginning for Egypt.
I hope this plan is the beginning of a new launch of the January 25th revolution, when people offered their dearest to restore their freedom, dignity, and social justice for every Egyptian. May God support us.
The U.S. State Department took a neutral position on the developments.
Again, we're not taking sides in this. This is for the Egyptian people and all sides to work through together, and we're hopeful that they can come to a political resolution.
Many, though, fear both sides might not come to a political solution, but a violent confrontation. Egypt is now entering an extremely fragile period in its history. How it weathers this crisis will have profound ramifications for the nation, the region, and the world. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
U.S. Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham say the U.S. should take action to stop Iran's nuclear program. The two appeared together at a news conference in Jerusalem earlier this week. They said a nuclear Iran poses the greatest danger to the Middle East. They believe the American people would support a U.S. military strike to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons.
Most Americans believe they would use it if they got it. Most Americans believe that they're serious about destroying the state of Israel. Most Americans believe that radical Islam is a threat to the American way of life. So I think this case can be made. It just has to be made. We're war-weary, but we're not tired of being free.
Graham and McCain say the recent election of a new president in Iran will not change its nuclear ambitions. On this 4th of July, the town of Prescott, Arizona, honors the 19 firefighters who lost their lives earlier this week. Officials say the town's tradition of over-the-top celebrations and fireworks will act as a tribute to the men known as the Granite Mountain Hotshots. They were based out of the Prescott Fire Station. On Tuesday, fire crews across the U.S. paused to remember the men and recognize the dangers all firefighters face. Safety experts are still trying to figure out what went wrong. Hundreds of firefighters continue to battle that Yarnell blaze. It's only 45% contained. The Statue of Liberty reopens to the public for the first time in several months. Back in October, Superstorm Sandy swamped the island where the monument stands. Repairs are still underway, but much of the work has been completed since Sandy drenched most of the 12 acres of the National Landmark site. Well, Americans are celebrating their independence today, but our freedom did not just happen because our founding fathers signed a declaration. Historian William Federer says we became a country because of a series of divine miracles. Dan Rainey has more now from Philadelphia.
Well, Bill, we are in our nation's first capital, and it's a perfect place to discuss your theory that miracles helped form the United States.
But when you understand that the British Empire was the most powerful empire in world history, and here's little fledgling America wanting to break away, the world was ruled by dictators, but America, something miraculous happened right here in Philadelphia.
All right, well, let's take a look around the city.
All right.
Well, you know, we've hit a little bit of rain, but that really just serves to remind me that the weather played a providential role in a number of battles throughout American history, including the Battle of Cowpens.
The Battle of Cowpens is when Americans had militia line up in a field. It's portrayed in the movie The Patriot that Mel Gibson had. And the British Colonel Tarleton sees them, can't resist the temptation, charges. The Americans fire a couple times, retreat over a hill. The British follow them to be met by 400 crack, battle-hardened American troops.
So luring the British over the hill.
Into a trap. 100 of them get killed, 800 captured, and then they hightail it out of there, and they come up to the Catawba River. And the Americans cross, the British come right behind it, but a flash flood happens, and the British have to wait half a day to cross. And then they get to the Yadkin River. The Americans cross before the British can, another flash flood. And this happens a third time at the Dan River. And
so 3 different flash floods hold the British at bay.
The British commander Henry Clinton says that we would have caught the enemy again had not there been the rising of the rivers almost miraculously to let the enemy over. So it's a miracle in American history, fascinating history, and it's real and it's true. And that's why you have people like George Washington say the hand of Providence has been so conspicuous in the course of the war that he must be worse than an infidel that lacks faith.
And I think we're on our way to Washington Square.
Right.
So let's head on over there. One of my favorite Washington stories, I think, dates back to the French and Indian War, where he ends one of the battles with bullet holes all through his uniform.
In July of 1755, you have 1,400 British troops marching just south in the Monongahela River Valley. 900 of them are killed in an ambush by these French and the Indians. The river's running red with blood. Washington's delivering orders back and forth for General Braddock. Braddock gets shot. Washington takes Braddock off the field, buries him, and then goes back to Fort Cumberland, and he writes a letter to his brother. And he says, by the almighty hand of Providence, I've been protected. I had 2 horses shot out from under me and 4 bullet holes through my coat, but escaped unhurt.
And one of the Indian warriors after that battle wrote, George Washington was not a man born to be killed by a bullet. That warrior said, I had 17 fair and good shots at him and couldn't bring him down.
And so again, we see this example that God providentially set George Washington aside to lead our country, and he didn't lust for power and set this precedent that we continue today, and we call him the father of our country.
All right, Bill, we're in front of the second bank, which seems like a fitting place to end our tour of Philadelphia, because everybody knows one of the primary phrases on all of our currency is, "In God we trust."
Well, as a matter of fact, that was the last bill Abraham Lincoln signed into law, was to put "In God we trust" on our coins. And this is one of those original 1864 2-cent coins that has "In God we trust" on it. The phrase came from Francis Scott Key's Star Spangled Banner, the 4th verse, and "Conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust." But America's founders, the very first ones here in Philadelphia, First Continental Congress opens with prayer. They trusted in God.
That after all the miracles we've talked about today, those founding fathers had more than enough reason to trust in God.
That's right. And so this is a miracle in world's history, that we have a nation that believes you have rights that come from a creator, not from a king. Right here in Philadelphia, this is the beginning of the country that gave birth to the most freedom and liberty and opportunity individually that planet Earth had ever seen.
Well, God bless America. In God we trust.
Amen.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Inspiring and encouraging. Those are today's top stories from CBN News. Reading and writing at any age can help keep your brain healthy later in life. Researchers in a new study found that the more active your mind is, the better your memory and other brain functions are as you get older. Researchers say activities like photography, writing letters or emails, or just figuring out daily problems can help. An American imprisoned in North Korea is calling for the U.S. to try harder to secure his freedom today. In an interview with North Korean media, Kenneth Bae said he is still hopeful the American government will help him gain amnesty from a 15-year sentence of hard labor. Bae is a devout Christian. He had hoped to be released today, not only because it's Independence Day, but it's also his father's 70th birthday. In April, North Korea convicted him of plotting to commit hostile acts against his government.